Welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show.
I'm Andee Hastings.
And I'm Mali Shadmary.
Together, we own Hastings Shadmary, an Atlanta-based law firm specializing in family law.
This is a space where we talk all things family law and all topics that touch the area of family law, from divorce to custody to self-growth, personal empowerment, and more. We bring you the truth, from our wolf pack to yours. Hello, and welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show. I'm Mali Shadmary.
And I'm Andee Hastings.
And we are so happy to have you all today. We're going to be talking about kind of a niche, if you want to be fancy. And that's going to be, what do you do with a workspace in a divorce if there's an office-owned business that's within your marital residence? What do you do with the business? How does that impact how we divide the marital estate? We're going to talk to you about that. But before we do, I'm going to ask, Andee, are you feeling like a warrior or a diplomat today?
Today, I would say warrior, for sure. We've just got a lot of people behaving badly, and I don't mean our clients. I mean other people, and it's making me feel very, very protective over our clients. Lots of bad behavior with regards to people's children, and that is the worst kind of behavior from a family law attorney's perspective, at least in my view. What about you? Warrior or diplomat?
First of all, I love that answer. Lots of people on bad behavior. I get that. I am a diplomat this week.
Okay.
I have a big trial in October and that gives me a little over a month to prepare for it, and working with our team to get prepared. I just have a very even-keeled mindset right now. And I think that, that lends itself to being a very strong warrior as well. When it's your time to prepare and battle's coming, I have a diplomatic mindset. I'm very, very balanced and just going through the motions, if you will, keeping my habits strong and just keeping my cases moving efficiently, keeping my teams happy and also moving efficiently. And I think that leadership entails that. Like, you can help set the tone for the people around you. And that's kind of my tone right now is, all right, everybody heads down. Let's get into a nice September and hit a nice rhythm together, and leading into a big trial month for October. It's a huge case, so it'll be fun.
It's going to be so fun.
Yeah. I'm feeling a little tired today, and that's rare for me, I'd say. I just, did not sleep. I drank pre-workout before the gym, and stayed up too late, so... Yeah.
Does that make you stay up? Does that keep you up?
It does.
Okay.
Yes. I was bouncing off the walls, what should I online shop for? And I was like, okay, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you know what I did? I read, and that put me right to sleep.
I do that to fall asleep, too.
I started reading a book. I'll talk about it another day. It's about meaning and man finding meaning in life. And how do you do that? And what does that mean? And I really enjoy that mental, I don't know, just turns me on mentally. I like that kind of a book. I'm not as into the fiction lately.
I love me a good murder mystery. I will not lie.
I could get into that. Maybe I'll do that after I finish this one.
Give yourself a little bit of a gear shift.
Mm-hmm. And you and I had a fun weekend.
We did.
We had a girls' weekend, and we worked on Friday. We were up in the mountains, and it was just gorgeous.
It was perfect.
Tell them the story that we encountered.
So we had the perfect balance of work and then attempts at walking and exercise and all the other things. And at one point in the evening, before we were going to get ready to go to dinner, we took one of my dogs and we decided to go for a little walk.
Tommy is one of her dogs. Oh my goodness.
He's special.
He was so proud to be up in the mountains with his mommy and Aunt Mali, just walking, and he was a precious baby.
He was.
He protected us.
He did. He took that job very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because when we took him for a walk, we're just going down this little hill and walking through this development.
Just
and
yapping away, girl talk,
woohoo,
we made through work day.
And all of a sudden, I look over kind of in my periphery and I see this bear running off of one of the houses, their porch, running across the front of the house and running away. And I was like...
So, because from from my perspective, I'm walking. She freezes. You freeze.
Did I?
And Tommy doesn't see it, thank God.
Yeah.
So he's like, and Andee stops and she goes, and she puts her hand on my shoulder. Yes. And so I freeze and I immediately see this black bear. It was a good mid-sized bear. And in the mountains of Georgia, that's what we've got is these black bears, not even only in the mountains, kind of everywhere. And it felt like it was 2 minutes long. I didn't breathe. We just froze. Very statuesque. Very statuesque.
And then we're both like, we're going back right now.
So the bear runs away, and we spun on our heel, and I said, we're done. We're done. We're done. We're done.
This walk is over.
Woo! So I don't think we hit 10,000 steps that day, but don't worry. We did hit it the next day because we shopped a lot. So.
We did.
But this bear topic.
Right. So apparently there's this thing on social media, on TikTok in particular, that people have been posing the question, particularly to women, what would you rather encounter if you were walking alone in the woods, a man or a bear? And we just thought that was funny because, we encountered a bear. So it necessarily brought to the forefront for us this question of what would you rather encounter in the woods if you're alone, a man or a bear? So what about you, Mali? What would you rather encounter, a man or a bear?
This is such a hard question to answer. And that bear we encountered over the weekend was not the first bear I've encountered face-to-face before. I had done that before years ago in the same mountain area in Georgia. And I was out running in the woods when I worked at this summer camp and ran head on to a bear. And at that time, I just spun on my heel and sprinted away and never turned back and got stung by a wasp as I was running away. Really weird day. But I am a big outdoors woman. I love being active, and I am in the woods a lot with my dogs. I hike all the time, and I do encounter men in the woods. But to the question, I would prefer to encounter a bear, and this is coming from a woman that I just see men and women equally. I do. That's just my personal beliefs, and because I was raised a certain way and around amazing people, I know I haven't faced similar struggles to some that many people have had. So I don't take my mindset for granted or my experiences for granted, but there's something about it. There's an energetic level. There's when you're alone in the woods. If I'm going to encounter something, I would rather be around a bear. And I'm a woman that, if a man's even going to look at me weird, I'm going to say, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? I can take care of myself, but I think it makes me feel more vulnerable. And even with crazy dogs and whatever protection I have with me, I would feel, I don't want that energy around me. I don't want to have to look at you. I don't want to I will say, when I'm walking away in the woods and I'm hiking and I encounter men all the time, I do turn my back to see at least 2 to 3 times what are they doing behind me. Did they walk away? And I had never really stopped to think about it until now. That's my natural instinct. I might be more shocked at first seeing a bear. But also, we live in Georgia. They're black bears. I don't know. A grizzly bear, but you can't ask those questions. It's just in general. Is it a bear or a man? Which one? What about you?
So I actually would also say a bear.
Oh my gosh.
And, it's strange because I share your feeling about having had the benefit and continuing to have the benefit of being surrounded by incredible men. Mm-hmm. It's not even that. It's encountering a stranger.
Yeah.
And that it's the thing that you said about looking over your shoulder because you don't know what they're doing. And there's something about that feels more threatening to me. Yeah. And, I looked into this after we, had our little bear incident this weekend. But, some of the comments that I've seen when I've been reading about this subject, what other people say is really interesting things that get into very touchy subjects like, a bear's not going to attack me and then ask me what I was wearing. Mm-hmm. Or a bear's not going to maul me and then get his friends to maul me too.
Yeah. And so interesting.
It is, and it's sad because I think that it's going along with what you said. In our society as women, we are raised to believe that there are threats around corners with people that we don't know. And unfortunately, there are a lot of women who have experienced those threats and the process of going through it, trying to protect themselves, defend themselves, and that sort of thing. So I definitely don't want to take anything away from that, because while you and I have been very lucky to be, surrounded by incredible people, it does not in any way minimize the situations that women have gone through. And from what I can tell, the vast majority of women, their answer has been that they would prefer the bear.
Yes. And there's some morbidity to it, but it's something about, okay, if I weigh worst case scenario on both potential encounters, would I rather face the worst case scenario with a bear or a man? And I think that's what you're saying. It's like there's so many other caveats to if it's a human that's going to torture me, which is, again, morbid. But it was just an interesting topic and part of what the universe threw at us this past weekend.
Literally.
So yeah, we're not scared to take on a bear, sweetheart. Okay.
As long as they're running away.
Oh my God, yeah, and that's a lie. That is a lie. We are scared, okay? But I literally screamed at my own reflection in my window 2 nights ago at my house. Like, that's not even a lie. I screamed.
That's
scary. I thought it was
scary.
someone outside my...
Exactly, it's scary.
I was just a girl. Okay, so let's talk about this topic. Let me paint the scenario for you, and then we'll talk it through.
All right.
So what if I am a hairdresser? I'm getting a divorce. We live in the same house, my spouse and I. We've got a few kids. And I own a hair studio at the house. And we've got all the equipment is there, the hair thingies, whatever. The lamps you sit under, all my supplies, my shelving units. My clients come to the home, and I do my appointments there. I'm able to do my stay-at-home mom thing, and maybe I have a nanny coming in and out while I do the business, but either way, now we're getting a divorce. And not only, are we going to have to determine who gets what money-wise, what's my financial support, we also need to determine what are we doing with the marital residence, which also holds my business. So if husband keeps the house, then where do I go work? What do we do? Or what if I'm the hairdresser and I need to keep the house because my business is there, but that means I have to buy my spouse out of the house? Like, what are the options and what happens during the divorce with all this happening? So without further ado, let's tackle it. What do we do?
Well, it depends.
Okay, well.
The magical answer.
What a lawyer answer.
I know. But so first of all, there's things that you do while a case is pending on a temporary basis that you have to deal with just so that you can get through to the end and figure things out. And I do think that one of the factors that comes into play, at least when we argue it to the court, if we have a client that has their business in the home, and I don't mean you've got a home office and you've got a computer set up that you could ostensibly do somewhere else. Talking about they've got sinks built into the wall and they've really built this out for their business, or it's a podcast studio, recording studio. Like there's different things that people do out of their homes, right? If they're a trainer. So where it's just not as simple to just pick up and go somewhere else. And I think part of the analysis that's really important is, at least when we argue it, is whose business is in the home? Is it the breadwinner, the primary breadwinner, or is it something that's used as maybe like a vacation fund addition to your income? Because on a temporary basis, what we're trying to accomplish is maintaining the financial status quo. And part of doing that is we need to keep people operating the way that they have been all along. So if you're the primary breadwinner and your office is out of the home, we're going to argue that you need to stay in it. Where it becomes tricky is if you also have kids and the other parent is the primary caretaker of the kids, because unless y'all can find a way to coexist in that house until the conclusion of the divorce, then we have to figure out who's going to stay there, why, and maintain the status quo in the meantime. So it's a very complicated issue. Without kids, I think that it's a very strong argument that the person whose business is literally built into the home has a better position, certainly on a temporary basis and maybe on a final basis, to stay in the home. But to your point, when you get to the end, courts don't want people to stay in business together, which means whoever keeps the home is going to have to buy the other party out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's not easy. If you've got the situation like your hairdresser who's built up their business in the home, then, they've been operating as a self-employed person. It depends on the finances. Are they going to be able to have enough assets to maybe trade off to buy the other person out? There's so many factors at play that we have to analyze and argue to the court on behalf of our clients. But what is your thought as far as temporary versus final basis in the business ownership?
I share in what you said. Temporarily, we need to maintain status quo. So typically that's going to mean actually y'all need to stay under the same roof if you can behave. And if you cannot, then we have to go to court on a temporary basis. And I think that the party that owns the business runs the business within the home is going to probably be the proper party that would prevail. They'd be the prevailing party on a temporary. Because I have had happen where spouses tried to mess with the business so clients wouldn't want to come to the house during the divorce. And that's a violation of the court standing order that takes effect once the case is filed and says you can't harass one another while the case is pending. You have to maintain status quo. But all of this falls within the realm of equitable division, which is the concept of the marital estate. What do you do with it? How do you divide the assets and the debts? The assets and the debts equate to the marital estate, and we divide the marital estate equitably. That's what equitable division is. It means fair division. And in Georgia, that's what we do. We don't just divide everything 50-50. We divide it fairly, aka equitably. And so in order for a court to determine what is equitable, fair, the court can consider conduct and can consider all these facts that would create the whole picture. So it's like, Your Honor, this is his or her whole livelihood. They've built this business from the ground up. This is the only expertise that they have. It makes sense. It just makes logical sense. It's fair, Your Honor. So there is a strong argument there. But when you've got something a little more tangible, like a business in the home, you do have more of an edge. So on a final basis, I would want to approach the strategy very creatively. And something along the lines of, okay, we're going to need to look at the marital residence A as an asset. Then you've got the business as an asset as well. You've got a couple different moving parts there. You've got this equity component of fairness and what makes logical sense. And then you're working within the confines of how much money are we actually working with? How much liquidity does this estate have? How much earning capacity does either party have? Do they have the ability to pay each other out? But the hope would be to preserve that asset. And I would want to appraise the residence, and hopefully, if I'm trying to keep the residence, get an appraisal that comes back at a lower value because of this studio that's in there. I think probably maybe it's going to come back with a higher value. Your spouse is going to want to get an appraisal and come in really high because this studio made it valuable. We're going to say, nobody wants to buy this house with this studio. Who would want that? They're going to have to do a reno and spend all this money to fix it. So you could really work it to your advantage, or either way. You can play the field both ways within reason if the facts support it. And if you can come in with a lower value because that business is there, that'd be optimal. You'd say, I want to keep this house, and I think I'm going to sway the scales in court on equity. It's more fair that I'd be able to preserve my business here. Your challenge is just going to be, can you get enough liquidity to pay the spouse out their portion of the equity in the house? I still think that a judge would want to split the equity 50-50. I don't think you'd get special credit. I think a jury might give you more credit. They would be more sympathetic usually, but not with a judge.
I agree with that. And, there's another factor in there too. And you just illustrated perfectly why my answer was, it depends.
Okay.
Because there are so many factors in equitable division that the court has to look at. And then there's also the factor that we haven't touched on, which is the other party, the party that doesn't have the business in the house, are they seeking support, like ongoing alimony or that kind of thing? Because for them to receive support, that necessarily requires the payor spouse, the breadwinning spouse, to continue that business as it's been going all along because that's a known quantity. We know what you can earn from that, at least based on past history. But if you've got to clear that out, you've got to start over new somewhere else and build it back up again, that could cause a lag. So there's all these just details that go into an argument about it. So there's not a clean answer. I agree with you if on a temporary basis, and we've definitely argued that, keeping the person with the business in the house. And again, it really does come down to the broader picture of your assets and what is the other party seeking. And if they're seeking things that require you to maintain that business as is, that actually helps your argument to keep the house.
It's such a good point. Yeah, like when there's different moving parts and when they connect, it can really strengthen your argument. Like, okay, if I'm a mom, and I'm going to have primary physical custody of the kids and I want child support, husband's usually going to want me to be at an income for child support purposes that's at my highest earning capacity, because that should decrease child support for him if I have a higher income on the child support worksheet. And just like you said, it's like, if you want to take away my workspace and I'm doing hair and I'm making $90 a year doing that, and you want to take away this, I'm going to have to get back on my feet, go join a studio, build back up a clientele or whatever. It's not as easy as it looks, and I'm not capable of earning $90,000 anymore. And the overhead's going to be more to rent an office space. It becomes a very complex topic if you have the right lawyer and you want it to be that way.
Right.
Because it's like, all right, so you want to uproot me. Now let's create a whole new business entity like life's going to look like for me. I'm going to have so much more overhead, new clients, so income lower. Sir, you're going to pay more child support. And that's just part of the beauty of an attorney that plays chess, not checkers.
This is true. One other thought I had, and it's a very fact specific. I had this come up recently with somebody who actually does hair and had done it out of her house, and the husband insisted on buying her out. And one of the things that you also have to factor in too, particularly now with real estate as expensive as it is, all the things, there's just so many, we could go on about the factors all day long. But she ended up, so they were in one city, and she ended up, in order to find a space that she could actually afford, because of things like overhead and that sort of thing, she basically had to go to another city. And in a town like Atlanta, you can hardly get anywhere in less than 40 minutes. And so in doing that, she ended up losing a chunk of her clientele because they didn't want to drive further. So it's just another factor. It doesn't change my answer. It's just it's very complicated. And so you definitely need an attorney who understands the nuances of those kinds of arguments. And it's definitely becoming a more prevalent concern.
And I think one of the practical takeaways is that if you're, in that situation and you know that a divorce is imminent, it's time to start planning. Well, okay, worst case scenario, if I don't get to keep the house and keep my working space and my building, my office space, then what are the new costs going to be for me? Where would I go? Plan ahead. It does not behoove you to just wait and throw estimates together while you're highly emotional and scared. Think through it in a workmanlike way and talk to your lawyer about it. And if you guys can plan that from the get-go, and I typically see that stuff like that does usually become an afterthought at the end of the case. Whereas if you guys as a team would have thought it through from the beginning and known, okay, worst case, we're going to go here, that will strengthen all the negotiations, make your costs in your case cheaper. I say again because we talk about this a lot. It's important to be forward-facing and not backwards-looking when you're in a divorce and in your life in general. Right. It's, okay, what's the backup plan? What's the backup plan? If you are knowledgeable and educated in the different potential approaches, you're going to reach a better income. Well, that too, I hope. Outcome.
I know what you meant.
Well, anything else from you, Andee?
Not from me.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time at the Hastings Shadmary Show. Find us on Instagram, Facebook. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the things. Come follow us, like us, rate us, all the things, but rate us nicely, please. See you next time.
See you next time.
The Hastings Shadmary Show is a production of Hastings Shadmary Family Law and 1066 Productions. Produced by Ned Hastings and Kendall Walker and edited by Ned Hastings.